Welcome to the Tony Freda Show. This is part two of our interview with Dr. Christine Mara. She's been a clinical psychologist for 25 years and has a very interesting and unfortunately tragic tale to tell about her family history. Last week we talked about how her parents and siblings were literally poisoned by the well in Camp Lejeune when her father was stationed there in the Marine barracks. Extreme neurotoxins damaged their reproductive organs and other organs and led to the early demise of her father. Her sister, one was born with developmental cognitive issues, and the other was born completely deaf. But Christine, unfortunately, did not go unscathed, but she didn't find out about her injury until half a century after the fact, after she was born. So something happened 2.5 years ago that made it quite evident that she had a problem that she was unaware of, a physiological problem in her brain. And we're going to talk about that today. So welcome, Christine. Dr. Mara, how are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great.
So why don't we go back to that night 2.5 years ago? You and I, full disclosure, Christine is also producer of the show and my partner, and we were lying in bed watching Netflix, which was a bad idea. An Obama production. It's very interesting. The Obamas got into movie making after they left politics because they know that politics is downstream from culture. So they want to influence the culture with their propaganda films. And we knew going into it that this was pre-predicted programming, a propaganda film, blame all the problems of the world on their political adversaries. So we knew that quite well going in, but seemed like an interesting dystopian film about the end of the world. So unfortunately, we watched it, and I don't know, we were about halfway through when Christine started experiencing something. So what is your first recollection of something was amiss that night?
Well, the night was actually quite good until that movie, I have to tell you, because I got out of work a little early, probably around 6 or 7, which was nice and early for me. And I don't know, I was in a pretty good mood and just looking forward to relaxing and watching some TV with you. And during the movie, I started to get anxiety. I thought it was anxiety. My heart started racing. I get palpitations very fast, very, very fast palpitations. And I thought it was just my anxiety about the movie. And so I told you, and we decided to shut it off.
Yeah, I remember saying, like, you said your heart was racing, and I said, of this movie, and it was a stressful movie. It's about the end of the world, and there's this, in the movie, there's this, they never explain what it is, but they call it the noise, and it's this probably a sonic weapon or an acoustic weapon, and when the siren goes off, people are in extreme pain, and their teeth start falling out, and horrible things happen to them.
Their
So
ears, they start bleeding out of their ears.
yeah, various horrible things
Nose.
start happening to them from this noise.
Mm.
So the noise, they call it the noise. It is a big part of the plot of the movie. But we found out later that the movie itself, some video editors who do this professionally, they download films from Netflix and Hollywood films all the time, thousands of them over the last 20 years. And they only came in contact with one from their experience that did not have just one audio file and one video file. So they downloaded the Obama movie made by Barack and Big Mike, and they found this. You see there's one video file and 4 audio files, not one, as every other Hollywood film that they downloaded had. This one has 4 audio files, and one of them is infrasonic, which means it's audio broadcast, but we hear it. We don't hear it. It happens below the threshold of our capacity to hear, but it's a sound wave nonetheless. It's able to penetrate your blood-brain barrier. It vibrates your ocular nerve and goes directly into your brain. And ELFs, or low frequency, are a class of weaponry, and they are psychologically and physiologically disquieting, and they can obviously cause neurological damage. They're designed to inflict pain, disorientation. They're called discombobulators or all sorts of things, but it's sort of this, as of the moment, it's sort of classified secret weaponry that was probably used in Venezuela and other conflicts, but it's just now being tested in the field of battle. And as crowd control and as ways to influence people, again, through the blood-brain barrier using sound waves. So that's just a little backstory on that, but let's go back to your story. What was the next thing you remember happening?
The next thing that I remember happening is I remember my head kind of moving back and forth like this. And I remember trying to tell you that something was wrong. And I kept repeating it, that something was wrong. I don't feel right. Something's wrong. I don't feel right, Anthony. Like something's wrong. And then that's it. Fade to black. I don't remember anything else after that until, I don't know, about 15 hours later. I don't remember anything else after that.
Yeah.
I do remember the part in the movie where they were, I think they were called EMPs, electromagnetic pulses. Some kind of sound was being emitted in the movie where there was a scene where Julia Roberts was like screaming and had her hands like over her ears, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they were over her ears, but she was like screaming in pain. And I remember this other like eerie part in the movie with this little girl with the deer in the backyard staring at them. I don't know, for some reason those two images like stand out in my mind before I like lost consciousness.
Yeah, so right before you went into the seizures, there was a moment when you realized something's very wrong.
Yeah, I was very scared. I was very scared.
Yeah, you had the most terrified look I've ever seen on a human being's face, and you started flailing about and speaking. It sounded like you were speaking in tongues. You were desperately trying to tell me something, but you had lost your capacity for language, so it came out as sort of just this gibberish, and
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on.
I remember the sentences in my head, which is so strange. I remember the exact sentences in my head. So it's interesting to me that that's my last memory. I remember saying something to you. So.
Yeah, and then immediately you sort of clenched up and you went into seizures, and you started foaming at the mouth, and you tightened up incredibly. Your whole body was like a rock, and you tightened up, and you found out later that you almost bit your tongue clean off, and you were in seizures pretty much for half hour. I mean, we called the 911. Took them about 20 minutes to get there. That whole time, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was happening. I was just holding you, and I could tell you had to be put on your side so you didn't swallow your tongue. But other than that, I mean, you were super healthy, like incredibly fit, like you were training for something, and maybe this was it, because 75% of the people this happens to don't make it. And there was a period there. I'm just filling in the gaps because you were in a coma at the time, so you don't remember.
Yeah. No, I don't remember anything else. Yeah. I don't.
You went into a coma. At one point, you all the tension left your body, and you just started laughing. And you went from this expression of extreme terror to expression of just peace and oneness with the universe, and God. And I don't know what happened, but it seemed to me like you went to the other side, and you were with your family, with your father, and with your loved ones, and you were just at a place of complete peace.
Yeah.
You're only there for a short amount of time, and then you clinch back up, back into seizures, and I just held you, and not just praying and holding and not knowing, feeling so inadequate because I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what to do, like none. And then the EMTs came. He was still unconscious, comatose. They pumped you full of I'm not sure
I think
what.
Ativan. I think
Sterile.
Ativan. They were giving me stuff to try to sedate me so I wouldn't keep seizing.
Yeah, and then and they put oxygen, and they tried everything, and then I mean they saved your life. I'm pretty sure of that. And they took you down to the ambulance. We had like 10 guys in the room, in our bedroom. Like, it was crazy. And they asked me if you were like taking drugs, and I said no, and they didn't believe me, and because I guess they see a lot of, obviously, heroin overdoses, fentanyl
Yeah,
overdoses.
it probably looks like that.
They didn't believe me. They thought you were taking drugs. I'm like, she's like, this is what I showed scripts. And sorry. And then they took you away to the ambulance, and you were in the ICU, you were in the emergency room with about 100 wires hooked up to you. And
You said I started seizing again in the ambulance.
You started seizing in the ambulance, yeah. On the way to hospital, you were seizing.
And just, for scientific information, seizing for over 10 minutes is very unusual. Usually when people have seizures, they're less than 5 minutes long. And when they're over 8 to 10 minutes long, typically people die. And doctors have told me it was impossible. And because it's your brain, the electrical firing in your brain goes out of whack. And your brain can only sustain itself for so long before it dies. Yeah, when you're in like an electrical storm in your brain. So somehow I was protected because I think you have people who get electrocuted on the deathbed or whatever in prison. It's no more than 8 minutes, I think.
Yeah. And you're losing a million brain cells a second, I believe.
When you seize, you lose a lot of brain cells. Yes.
Yeah, it's an astronomical number, but
luckily we have a lot.
Yeah, it's a good thing you got some extra. Well, you do that. You have cognitive reserves because you have a PhD and you do a very high intellectually challenging profession. So I think that helps save you on your physical fitness. Your physical and cognitive fitness, I think, is what kept you alive. But also, I think there was divine intervention because something kept you here. You're here for a purpose, and thank God you're here 2.5 years later. And you're like, what percentage of yourself would you say is back?
I'm still not all the way back. I'm about 80 to 90% back. My energy still flags a little bit for me. People have told me I have an extraordinary amount of energy. So for me, it's maybe it's more what the average person has now. I don't know. So I still have a little bit of like flagging in my energy, and my ability to handle loud noises and bright lights sometimes can be a bit much. So there's still a little bit there. Yeah, there's still a little bit. I'm still not quite the same, but at least I feel like myself again.
Yeah, well, you did a lot of interventions and to prevent real damage from occurring. We can get into that, but to give people an idea how you help yourself with different various
Yeah.
therapy. But
So
let's go back to, so the first thing you remember, it was noon the next day. You went into coma around 9 o'clock, and then it was like 12 or 12:30 the next day where they took you out of it, because at some point they put you into a coma because they wanted to keep the brain activity
I
down.
went into one, and I think they wanted to sustain it.
Yeah, so they induced coma, and you were like
Stop the
a
seizures.
level 3 on the Glasgow coma scale, which means you're almost dead, right?
Yeah, there's a Glasgow coma rating scale, and I used to know about it because I've worked with people with these conditions.
Yeah.
And anything below, I think, a 4 means you're near death. And I was at a 3. The test looks at like dilation of pupils, response to skin pain. I'm not sure what else, but I know it's pupil. Oh, hearing too. So if they snap by your ear and you blink or you respond a bit. So I pretty much was having no response to pretty much everything.
It appeared that you were
Yeah.
like dying.
The scale goes from 1 to 15. So
Yeah.
I was a 3. Whereas most people are going to be a 15 just on a normal conscious basis. You're a 15. I'm a 15 now. Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably more like a 10 at the moment, but okay. So you wake up, and what is the first thing you remember? I mean, what is that like, waking up in the hospital? I have no idea how you got there.
Well, I was really tired, and I could see that I was in the hospital. I didn't have my glasses on, but I could kind of make out, could kind of deduce that I was in a hospital. And I looked to the left, and there you were. You were sitting there. And
Yeah.
just reassured me. I asked you what happened.
Yeah, your first words were, "What happened?" And you must have asked me 5 or 6 times, and I kept telling you what happened, abbreviated, because we didn't really know at that point, like, what happened. We knew you went into seizures, and we knew you were in a coma, but they hadn't done all the scans yet and really figured out that you had this. Well, you explain it. What was in your brain that they think you were born with? They're not 100% sure, but most likely you were born with something in your brain. And what is it?
Well, the vascular brain surgeon said it, like, most likely it was a birth defect. I was born with something called a cavernous malformation, a cavernoma. And what that is a little cluster of capillaries that sit on your brain that shouldn't be there like that. They don't function like a normal. So normally in our brain, we have arteries and veins, and the arteries bring the oxygen to the brain through the blood. And the veins, the blue things, they bring the deoxygenated blood out, and it circulates back out. And in between the arteries and the veins, there's a little bridge, and it's a capillary that transfers the blood over. But this little cluster looks like a little raspberry. They said it's about 10 millimeters in size, whatever that translates to in inches. But it's small, but it's right about here. They said on my brain, sitting right on my brain, and it bled, and they don't really know. They can't really explain why it bled.
It was about the size of a dime, the bleed.
The dime, okay, so about the size of a dime. They said it's high. Sometimes it runs in families, particularly Hispanic families. There's a genetic component, but there's no genetics involved with this, with my family. There's no history of this, that I'm aware of. And the brain surgeon said that I was more than likely born with it, but I wouldn't have known. I've lived my whole life without any issues with knowing I had this thing.
Yeah, so from that moment on, we went to a lot of doctors to try to figure out how to keep you alive and not have another seizure, and to try to understand what happened. And we kept asking him, like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Supposedly you had this thing in your brain for half a century and nothing ever triggered it before. So I find it very hard to believe it's a coincidence that at the moment your brain was exposed to infrasonic sound wave, that something triggered a seizure and triggered this brain bleed.
Yeah.
Can't prove that, but it's very interesting that it happened at that exact moment. It never happened. You never had any other instances.
Yeah, it is a working theory I have that really would be very hard to prove. I'd really have to delve in and see if I could find any other data that shows infrasonic sound, which is below the threshold of hearing. It's below 20 hertz.
Yeah.
You know, if people from a television speaker can experience the symptoms that I got, which infrasonic sound as a weapon causes internal hemorrhaging. It causes extreme anxiety, paranoia, and organ damage. So, my guess is that the exposure to the sound caused something, because I had no symptoms my whole entire life of
No.
anything. That my vascular surgeons, I asked them, brain surgeons, what do I look for going forward to know that I have to worry that there's a brain bleed? And the doctor said you'd get a band of head pain right across your forehead like this, and it wouldn't go away, and it would be excruciating. I didn't have that. And I
No.
remember asking
Yeah.
the neurosurgeons about that. Like, I didn't have any symptoms. I
Yeah.
had no headaches.
Yeah.
I felt fine. I don't have a history of headaches. I mean, like everybody else, I get one once a month or, something like that. But I had no symptoms of anything that would have warned me that there was something wrong before
No,
that occurred.
Yeah. Nothing occurred that would give you any indication that you're about to go into this horrible brain bleed and seizure mode. But I was worried that night because you stopped breathing, and I'm not a doctor. I think breathing's pretty important, so that scared the hell out of me. And
I think that my cardiovascular system was extremely healthy because of all the exercise I had done. And when you exercise as intensely as I have over the years, you're able to handle a drop in your heart rate much more. So you're still getting blood flow and oxygen, but you can have a slowed rate. So I think that's probably why I didn't get anoxia, which is lack of oxygen in the brain.
yeah,
I didn't get any brain damage from anoxia.
yeah, Christine was extremely physically fit, like Olympian, like crazy. But yes, you were. I mean, she would work out 2 hours a day, get up at 5 in the morning. I mean, she was very conscientious about her fitness. But then, obviously, after this happened, you went through a long convalescence where you, not only could you not work out 2 hours a day, you could barely move, right?
Yeah. So after we came home from the hospital a few days later, I was really tired all the time, exhausted. Like, I shuffled my feet when I walked. I talked really slowly. I was on a lot of heavy duty seizure medicine because one of the goals when you have a seizure, when you have a seizure, you're highly likely to have another seizure. So in the first few months, I had to be monitored 24/7 to ensure that if a seizure occurred, that it could be gotten right away, because you don't want to have another seizure, because one seizure causes another one, causes another one. So I was lucky. I had no more seizures, but I had no energy. And on top of having no energy, I had so much fear.
Yeah, well, that was the PTSD. You definitely had PTSD, and that's normal when you face death like that, a near-death experience. So I think that was part of it. Yeah, and the drugs are heavy-duty drugs that have massive side effects psychologically, physically.
Seizure medication was horrible. Anybody on seizure medicine will tell you how horrible it is. I was on Keppra. If anybody's on Keppra.
Yeah, so you had the physiological damage to your brain, which that takes, they say, 5 years to recover from that alone. But then you have, the trauma of the medication and the psychological, spiritual trauma of almost dying and having everything in your life change that moment, right? The way you work, the way you worked, every single part of your life changed in one instant.
I couldn't work. I thought I could. I thought I could work. I was convinced I could just kind of snap back out of it and get back to work. And so 2 weeks later, after resting and probably sleeping all the time when wasn't experiencing anxiety, I tried to work. I scheduled. I have a private practice, so I scheduled a few patients to see at home, from my home computer, and I spaced them apart an hour between, so I could rest in between 3 appointments. And I realized I couldn't do it. I, w-
Yeah.
I was I
Well,
was
you
too.
slept a lot and you watched Lord of the Rings a lot, and somehow that
I
gave you,
watched Lord of the Rings a lot.
Frodo
Yeah.
gave you some peace. That it was sort of like you were going through what Frodo went through, that sort of arduous journey back to yourself, which thank God. I mean, you've gone through so much, but your strength and resilience, over 2.5 years, and all the therapies that you engaged in to sort of build your body and spirit and soul and mind back up, are showing some fruit, because most people are not as in good shape as you are after an event like that.
I remember one of my doctors that I went to see shortly thereafter. Well, a couple different doctors, but one of them said to me, he was one of the neurosurgeon. No, he was a neurologist that I had to go see. They wanted me to see somebody immediately within a week of coming home. So I couldn't get in with the neurologist that treated me in the hospital. So I got in with his partner. And you were with me, of course, because I couldn't drive for a year. And I was afraid to go to appointments by myself. I didn't feel I could talk. I lost all this confidence in me and ability to feel like I could communicate what I wanted to ask them about clearly. So we're waiting in the room, and the doctor comes into the room, and he read my chart outside the door. And he said, "Oh, I thought I was going to come in here and you were going to be drooling in a wheelchair."
Yeah, I think more than one doctor said that.
Uh,
But
like nice bedside manner, but
yeah, that was
nonetheless,
fun.
when you
Then he
read
asked
that
you
stuff,
for
face.
marital advice, right, or
Yeah, he
therapy?
was asking me if I do marital therapy, if I can help him with his wife.
Yeah, I'll get
Yeah,
right on that,
I
buddy.
just got out of having they called it a hemorrhagic stroke as well. It wasn't only a brain bleed with seizures. They also refer to it as a hemorrhagic stroke. A
Yeah,
blood on your brain is a hemorrhage, and any blood on your brain is considered a stroke. So even though the neurosurgeons were like splitting hairs with me, they're like, "You really didn't have a stroke,
I know,
but
but
we have to call it that."
it was confusing because you said, "Did I have a hemorrhagic stroke or not?" They're like, "You did, but you didn't." It was like, it was very confusing. And then you kept asking every doctor we saw, like, "Why did this happen?" And none of them could tell you. There wasn't high blood pressure. It wasn't some sort of, you know, it. So that's why they say it's idiopathic. But I think that we have the best working, theory
Yeah,
about what happened to you, because we
yeah.
watched it happen and it makes sense. So I blame Obama. All right, and 100%. Obama and Big Mike, they did this to you, and they're going to pay. But the other tragedy of it is, so your life is bookended, right? At the beginning of your life, your whole family was damaged by government malfeasance and criminal action by
Yeah,
poisoning your family at
yeah,
Camp Lejeune. And then this happens, which was probably caused by that initial birth defect, was caused by your parents being compromised. But then
yeah.
now you're suffering from another government entity in this form of I don't know if it was a beta test or some sort of infrasonic weaponry, whatever Big Mike and Barry Satoro were up to. It was something evil. I'm convinced of that. And the fact that they did it at all on unsuspecting people, this infrasonic soundtrack was in there. So why was it in there?
Well,
And
no.
we don't know, but we don't have a lot of time left. But I do want you to come back and flesh out more of your story and the therapies that got you back here. But
Yeah. And I mean, the thing about the sound in the movie wasn't something we really even thought of for almost 2 years. We only
no,
started to consider that possibility last year when you were talking with a friend of yours. But what I did realize was that when I was helping my mother with the application for the Camp Lejeune lawsuit, I was putting a summary down of all the kids in the family. And then I realized, whoa, at least 3 of the 4 of us had a birth defect. Now I'm included in that.
Yeah.
So
And
cavernoma, my other two sisters. So 3 of the 4 of us, and my brother, I suspect as well, but that's yet to be like confirmed in any
yeah.
hard evidence
So,
way.
so yeah, the odds of all 4 children having birth defects without your parents were healthy. So the odds of
Yeah.
that happening are
So
astronomical.
that was jarring and very upsetting when I
Yes.
realized that. Like,
It's, I can't imagine how that made you feel, but, well, you're here, I believe, for a
yeah,
purpose. You're here, you're healthy, you're on the way back to full recovery 2.5 years later
yeah.
after a long convalescence and many therapies. And thank God, God has you here for a reason, Christine. And hopefully we'll figure that out, what it is. But thank God you're here, and thank you for being on the Tony Freda show. And there's more to come, people. There's more to the story. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next time. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Doc.
Thank you.